Hi everyone, I just finished making this 2019 graduation centerpiece, and in this video I'm just going to show you the simple steps that I took to put it together. If you're working on a graduation or need ideas, I am putting together a lot of different blog posts and video ideas, so feel free to subscribe to my channel and you'll see more. And if you do feel like it was beneficial anyway, please take a minute and just like my video. I'd really appreciate that. All right, let's do a quick review of some of the supplies you're going to need for this project. Whatever container you want to use to hold your centerpiece, you need to have that figured out. I'm guessing whatever you use, you will use some kind of paint on it. I have a mason jar. This particular one's a shorter mason jar. I used two colors of paint. I used the blue Rust-Oleum gloss protective enamel. This was the Harbor Blue color. And then for my white, I use this Rust-Oleum 2X Ultra Cover with painter and primer. Then that kind of takes care of your jar. You'll need something to hold your centerpiece as you get your components that are going to stick in. This is like a 97-cent Walmart kind of foam block that I grabbed. And then for this particular centerpiece, we're doing tulle pom-poms, and so you'll need whatever colors of tulle that you want to use. So I've got some blue, some gold, and I grabbed some white. And then I like to have ribbons coming down from my pom-poms, so I've got a few different colors of ribbons here. And then I'm going to use the wooden dowel rods to be what actually holds what's coming up out of my centerpiece. This whole bag was like 97 cents at Walmart, so it's a pretty inexpensive centerpiece component as well. I also use some small acrylic paints in gold, white, and blue. The blue's not shown here, and some of this jute twine that I used to wrap around the mason jar. I did use both light blue and white paint on this project for the mason jars. I put a couple of coats of blue on the mason jar, and then once that dried, I came back and I did a coat of white around the rim of the mason jar. I think that turned out really cute. They make a lot of different lengths of the dowel rods and even different diameters. These are the ones that I've selected. I needed something a little bit longer for some of the projects I'm doing. You can choose to leave them just the wood color. It actually looks pretty nice. A lot of people do that. For this project, I am going to paint these blue. So I'm just going to use my foam brush to get this blue paint on these dowel rods. The bottom doesn't matter because it's going to be sticking in a vase. So I'll probably still kind of paint it and just not worry too much about what it's looking like. So you'll notice here that I'm painting these dowel rods in 3 different colors. I do several in blue, then I switch over to some gold paint, and then finally I paint some of them in white. Those are the colors of our party, and so I just want to have them ready. I'm going to be doing pom-poms in all different colors as well, so having these dowel rods ready to go will really be helpful. It only takes a few minutes for these to dry, so I could easily get a couple of different coats on just to make sure that color was looking good on all of the dowel rods that I was preparing. Okay, so I'm going to start making my pom-poms using the tool that I have here. You also see I have a couple of different ribbons. I'm going to use this to tie the pom-pom once I get it pulled together. And then I need to really start by cutting some of this ribbon. I use about 14-15 inches. Really depends on how long you want your strings to come off of your dowel rods and your pom-pom when you put them into your centerpiece. But here I measured about 14 inches of each string, and I am doing 2 different strings just to get some color coming off of the pom-poms in the centerpiece. And I like to just do that before I start making the pom-poms so that once I get the pom-pom ready, I can easily just tie it off. Sometimes I forget, but you always see me try. So this is the template that I cut. It's 4 inches by 6 inches. We're going to be wrapping the tool around the 4-inch part because that's about the size of the pom-pom we're wanting to make. I'm just trying to unravel some of it. It's a lot easier to work with if it's not tied on the spool. And so I'm going to wrap it around 17 to 20 times is what I like to do. I just use my finger to hold down that beginning strand as I wrap it around, and try to keep count as I go, just so that I can be consistent about my size of my pom-pom. You can get this tulle ribbon anywhere, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, you can get it at Joann Fabrics, you can get it at Walmart. I've never looked for it at Target, but it's really easy to find, and they have so many different colors. And so in my project, I'm going to be using some light blue and some gold and some white. So cutting this off, and once I do that, I've got to get this off of the cardboard template. So I just do that by sliding it off here. And then I've got to find the center point. So I've got to put it down, and I'm going to tie this ribbon around right in the middle. It is pretty important that you're tying the ribbon with equal amounts of this pom-pom on each side. Otherwise, your pom-pom is going to be really lopsided, and one side will be much, much longer than the other. So you can start to tie it, get that single knot in, but before you tie the double knot, just make sure it's right in the middle. And once you do feel like you've got it centered pretty well, then you want to go ahead and get that second knot in and just tie that super tight, because you don't want it coming undone while you are then shaping and fluffing your pom-pom. So I'm getting that second knot in here right now. And then once you do that, the second part then is going to be to cut your loops. And I use my finger, and I just try to kind of thread my finger back through where that loop was. Sometimes I nail it and I get it all the way through, and other times I kind of have a harder time. This time was a lot easier. So I got my finger in there, and then I grab my scissors and I stick them through that same path, and then I just make a cut. I find this to be the easiest way to cut the tulle. And then I flip it over to the other side. I make my way through that loop with my finger again just to find the path. And then once I do, I'll stick those scissors through and cut it again. Sometimes I can't find my way to the end, and I just try to kind of separate it out and figure out where I can get my scissors through and cut that part. And then I'll make my way, through the rest of the loops. It's fine if you don't cut all the loops at once. It's not a big deal at all. It's pretty normal as you start fluffing the bow to actually find some loops that somehow were missed when you did that initial cut. And all you do is just keep grabbing your scissors and cutting those loops that you missed whenever you find them. Again, it's just not a big deal at all. You do want to make sure you find them and cut them, because that's what's going to make your pom-pom fluffy, is to have all those cut loops. And so this is where you really come in and you start fluffing, and you want to pull the layers apart of the tulle. You want to pull some forward, pull some to the sides, because you're really trying to get that tulle kind of up into a ball, into a pom-pom. And so you want it kind of going all different directions. And so that's what I'm doing here. You'll see sometimes I pick up my scissors because I find different loops that I missed. But just continuing to get that pom-pom fluffed. And once that pom-pom is fluffed and ready, it's time to go ahead and glue on the dowel rod. So I open up those to where the strings, where that knot is on the string, and I'm going to put some glue right in there and poke my dowel rod in, and then just kind of squeeze around the dowel rod. So my hot glue is ready. I'm going to put a pretty generous dab in there on the knot, just because I really want it to stick to that dowel rod. And then I want some of that tulle even around the knot to come down and kind of close in on it. So that's why I need even some extra. I'll even just pipe a little bit in little spots around the dowel rod. I'm holding it in, it takes about 30 seconds or so for that to really set. So I want it to really set up on that knot, but then also I want to get the rest of that glue in there and just tuck, the tulle up around that knot. Just kind of make a full circle. It kind of just closes that circle on the bottom part. Just burnt my finger a little bit. I got to be careful. It's hard with the tulle because you want to squeeze it, but yet the glue just comes through there so quickly, and it's so dang hot. So once you get it ready, you can still come in and trim it up a little. This is where you just look for areas of your pom-pom that are a little too long that might need to be trimmed. So I'm going to go ahead and make another one, because I will have 2 pom-poms in my centerpiece. I'm making another blue. I actually don't think I think I'm probably going to have one blue and one white in the centerpiece I'm making today, but just to kind of show you a quick additional Pom Pom. I'm doing it here kind of in fast speed motion. I missed a lot of loops on this one. I found myself picking up my scissors a lot, and then gluing in the dowel rod and getting that ready. So I am also making one of my dowel rods feature the graduation year, the 2019. I found this 2019 cut file on the Cricut Design Space. It was 99 cents, and I just really blew it up. I made it a lot bigger than the original size that it came in at. And I did go ahead and cut it on the Cricut glitter cardstock. I didn't want to use the glitter cardstock that wasn't Cricut because I just don't want to jam up my Cricut machine with glitter falling into there. I know there's some kinds that work well, but I just don't want to take any chances. So I just got that cut, and then I hot glued on one of my gold dowel rods on that to get that fun graduation year worked into my centerpiece. I think it turned out really cute. So I have all these great things ready to stick into my centerpiece, but I do need something to kind of poke the dowel rods into. Otherwise I can't really control how they lay out within the mason jar. Got this big block of styrofoam for 99 cents, and I'll probably be able to cut it into 4 different pieces for 4 different centerpieces. So for about $1/4, I can kind of help set my dowel rods into the centerpiece. So I'm using scissors here. There's probably a better way to do it, but that's how I'm just kind of cutting off my little piece. Sometimes I'll take tissue paper and wrap it around the block that I cut. That just kind of helps keep it from even wiggling around in there. I probably will come in and do that once I kind of get it all laid out, just because I don't want it shaking around too much. But at least you get the idea of how that's going in there and how my dowel rods will then poke into it. All right, so now I just need to get my pom-poms stuck into the styrofoam. I'm going with 2 pom-poms and my 2019 dowel rod. At one point I was sticking in several more pom-poms, and I'll just say less is more. It was just so busy, and I think it's so much cuter when it's simple. Once I get these 3 things stuck into the styrofoam, it's really just time to trim up my ribbons and then to trim up my pom-poms one last time. I like to wait and do that once the centerpiece is ready, because then you have a much better idea of exactly how the pom-poms are showing, and you can kind of trim up and do any of those last minute touches that you think are really going to make it look cute. I did want to finish it off with some kind of ribbon around the mason jar. I've got so many cute ribbons. I kind of struggled. There's so many different options. I decided though just to put some twine around the rim of the jar, and I just wrapped it a whole bunch of times. It would have been a lot smarter if I would have done that before I put the stuff in, because I found myself struggling to get it around the rim. But I got it, and I think that the twine, it's pretty simple, but I think it gives it kind of a nice final touch. I think it's super cute. I'm going to go ahead and make some tissue paper shred to add to my centerpiece. For those of you that haven't done that, you just take a package of white tissue and with scissors cut thin strips. And a little bit goes a long way when you're making tissue paper shred. And so once you get that cut, grab it in, kind of shake it around a little bit, and you'll see how this tissue paper shred just kind of comes to life. You can even trim that in half, and that makes those little pieces a little bit smaller if you need to. Tuck that in, then it's hiding all those sticks and even the empty gaps between the sticks. And it's really, when you look at how much you get for so little, it's just pennies to get those containers filled up for your centerpiece. And it's something that it's really a great topper anytime you have jars that need a little bit of vase filler. Okay, so I think the centerpiece turned out really well. And it was actually pretty easy, and other than waiting for the jar to dry, it really went pretty quickly. So like I said, if you found this video beneficial, please take a second to like. And if you do crafts or you celebrate different holidays, or especially if you have a graduation coming up, take a minute and subscribe to my channel, because I'm going to have a lot more videos coming your way.